You know that moment when you're standing in a grocery aisle holding two products and you're just wondering, which one is actually better for the planet? Well, the answer is usually way more complicated than you'd think. So today, let's dive into a classic example to see exactly why.
And here we go, the ultimate beverage container showdown. In one corner, you've got the sturdy, classic glass bottle, and in the other, the sleek, modern aluminum can. Seems like a pretty simple choice, doesn't it? But is it really?
So, what's your gut reaction here? Which one do you think really wins the environmental prize? Come on, be honest. Most of us have a quick answer pop into our heads, probably based on our own assumptions. Let's put those to the test.
I mean, on the surface, the arguments seem pretty clear. Glass feels kind of premium, and hey, it's endlessly reusable, right? Meanwhile, aluminum is super lightweight, and we all know it's one of the most recycled materials out there. Both have strong points for sure, but these are really just our first impressions. To actually get past those assumptions and find a real science-based answer, we can't just look at the products on the shelf. No, we have to look at its entire journey. We have to uncover its entire life story.
And that, my friends, brings us to the hero of our story today, this really powerful method called a life cycle assessment, or LCA for short. This is the tool that lets us see the whole picture.
So what is it? Well, the most important thing to know is that LCA is a standardized way of looking at all the environmental impacts of a product, from the very beginning when raw materials are pulled from the earth, which we call the cradle, all the way to the end when it's thrown away or recycled, also known as the grave. A really good way to think of it is like this. An LCA is basically writing a product's full biography. It tracks everything: the mining for raw materials, the energy used to manufacture it, the fuel burned to transport it, how you use it at home, and finally, what happens to it when you're done. It's the whole shebang. Okay, so how does this biography actually get written? Well, it's not just guesswork. It's a really rigorous four-step scientific process. Let's break down exactly how it works. Every single proper life cycle assessment follows these four phases. First, you define your goal and scope. Then, you build this massive thing called the inventory. After that, you run the impact assessment. And finally, you get to the interpretation. So let's take a quick look at each one.
All right, step one is goal and scope. This is basically where you set the rules of the game. You have to define exactly what you're studying and why. A huge part of this is defining your functional unit. So what's the job the product does? Something like delivering 1 liter of a beverage. And also setting the system boundaries, which is just deciding which parts of the life story you're going to include in your analysis.
Next up is the life cycle inventory. And trust me, this is the heavy lifting. It's this incredibly exhaustive accounting process. You're collecting data on every single input. We're talking energy, water, raw materials, and every single output, like emissions into the air or water, for every single stage of the product's life. It is incredibly detailed work.
So once you have all that raw data, and it's a lot of data, you move to the impact assessment. Now, this is where the magic really happens. All those numbers from the inventory, kilograms of steel, tons of CO2, they get translated into environmental impacts that we can actually understand.
And here's what's so cool. It's not just about the carbon footprint. A good LCA looks at a whole range of what we call impact categories. Things like the potential to cause acid rain, how much we're depleting natural resources, the effects on human health, even water usage. It gives us a much richer, more complete picture of the real environmental cost.
Now, don't worry, you do not need to memorize this table. What's interesting here is that it works like an environmental dashboard. It just shows the scientific rigor behind the process. For example, you can see how it directly connects emissions like CO2 and methane to the problem of global warming potential. It's all about organizing that super complex data.
And the final step is interpretation. This is the so what phase. This is where you analyze all the results to identify the hotspots, the parts of the life cycle that are causing the most damage. Because the goal isn't just to get a score, it's to figure out how to make the product better.
Okay, now that we've got the four-step process down, let's circle all the way back to our original question and apply this framework to our showdown, the glass bottle versus the aluminum can.
So here it is, our goal and scoop. We're comparing reused glass bottles against aluminum cans. Our functional unit, remember that? It's delivering 1 liter of a packaged drink. And our system boundary is cradle to grave, meaning we are looking at the whole life story. And the results are in. For glass bottles, the LCA points to 2 major hotspots: manufacturing and transport. I mean, it takes a ton of energy to make glass, and then you have to ship those heavy bottles around.
But the big win for glass comes from its reusability, if it gets washed and refilled over and over and over again.
Now, for aluminum cans, it's a different story. The biggest environmental hit comes from producing brand new aluminum from scratch. It's extremely energy intensive. But, and this is a huge but, aluminum is amazing at being recycled. The environmental impact absolutely plummets when cans are made from recycled material instead of raw ore.
So, which one is better? Well, the LCA reveals that there's no simple winner. It all depends on these really key factors, like how many times that glass bottle gets reused and what the recycling rate is for those aluminum cans. And that is the key insight. LCA doesn't just pick a winner, it shows us how to improve both systems.
You see, this way of thinking, seeing the full life cycle, the entire story of the products we use every single day, is just incredibly powerful. It really does change how you see the world around you.
Ultimately, the big takeaway here is that life cycle assessment is a vital tool. It helps everyone, from the people designing products to us as consumers, move past our gut feelings and simple assumptions. It lets us see the hidden environmental story behind everything we make and use.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If every single product on the shelf could tell you its full, unfiltered life story, what choices do you think we'd all make differently? Thanks for tuning in.